Can you believe Assassin's Creed is about to have its 10th anniversary in a few months? It seems like only yesterday we saw this cool teaser for a game set in the Crusades, where a white-hooded figure murdered a dude and then parkoured his way to safety. Well, over the years, we've played plenty of dudes in hoods, murdered countless people in many time periods, and climbed lots of towers. But this year marks a big shift for the series. A chance to start fresh. So let's take a look back at the whole of this massive gaming franchise. This is the history of Assassin's Creed. Development of the original Assassin's Creed started as far back as 2004. After the release of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, creative director Patrice Désilets started work on a spin-off game called Prince of Persia: Assassins. Instead of playing as a prince, you would play as an assassin that must rescue the royalty. As the idea grew, the prince became less important, and it was decided to drop the Prince of Persia title altogether and make it its own series. The final game would take place during the Crusades, where you played as a member of the Assassin Brotherhood that would kill to preserve peace, surrounded by a modern-day story of a corporation using genetic memories to access the history of the past. Assassin's Creed, released on November 12th, 2007.
My men do not fear death, Robert. They welcome it, and the rewards it brings.
Good! Then they shall have it all around!
Follow me, and do so without hesitation.
Show this fool knight what it is to have no fear. Go to God!
The original Assassin's Creed is a fantastic proof of concept. Your goal is to kill 9 targets. At the start, you enter one of 3 cities, do 3 possible missions to gather information, 7 if you have the PC version, and then you assassinate the target.
Let go your burden.
Unrest now, yes.
Its repetitive structure can wear pretty thin quickly, but it's saved by the thrill of assassinating your targets. Choosing when to strike and attempting the perfect, most stylish kill is a good challenge, and even when you mess up, chasing down your prey by jumping from roof to roof is heart-pounding. When you find yourself in combat, swordplay is stylish but also simple. Created to emulate a one-on-one duel, you look for an opening strike or use your counter ability to activate a deadly finish. Assassin's Creed is a game of firsts. Its climbing and parkour is an evolution of its predecessors like Prince of Persia and Tomb Raider, but by being set in an open world, you have the freedom to climb any building. If it looks like you can grab it, you will, and Altair can chain his runs, leaps, and climbs together with fluid animations. While it lacks the bustling life and realism we expect in open-world games nowadays, the 3 Middle Eastern cities still stand out today for their dense urban design and a time period that isn't used often in games. It's the first game to start Ubisoft's now infamous tower climbing mechanic, but here it was quite novel and provided an excellent view.
Altair,
Master.
come forward. Tell me of your mission.
The story sets up the conflict between an ancient assassin brotherhood and the Templar Order. Both wish to bring peace, but through different means. Assassins value freedom and kill powerful men who stifle it. The Templars feel man is incapable of helping themselves and use control. The game sets it up as two sides of the same coin and plays with the idea of morality of your actions. The presentation is lacking when compared to later games in the series, with little in the way of cutscenes and proper time for side characters.
I told you he'd be fine.
Bastards!
More interesting is the modern-day plot. Desmond Miles is a seemingly normal guy who's been kidnapped by a massive corporation called Abstergo. Using a machine called the Animus, they can have Desmond relive the memories of his ancestor, locked away in his DNA. It's a fun mix of pseudoscience and conspiracy theory. Both Desmond and the player are kept in the dark about what's really going on, with clues and hidden messages hinting at a larger narrative. For a first-time outing, Assassin's Creed did really well, and blew people away back in 2007. The game well outsold Ubisoft's expectations and received high praise from critics. AC1 was a great proof of concept for many of the series' ideas, but it would be Assassin's Creed 2 that crafted a truly great game out of them.
Insieme per la vittoria!
The setting swaps the dusty Middle East for the Italian Renaissance. A more involved story was a big focus, and you can tell with new protagonist Ezio. He's a likable, charming character who we see grow over the course of the game, from rich boy living a carefree life to master assassin on a personal quest to avenge his family.
The auditori are not dead! I'm still here! Me! Ezio! Ezio Auditore!
Gone is the rigid structure of the first game's 9 targets, replaced with a more natural progression of story and characters. Quests offer far more varied and interesting gameplay, and the game has multiple avenues of character progression and customization, from upgrading armor, changing outfit colors, and building up the villa, your home base so to speak. Compared to the previous game's limited side content, AC2 is stuffed with things to do. The game really leans into the historical aspect this time around. Not only are Renaissance-era Florence and Venice recreated with accurate detail for a game, but Ezio makes friends and allies with famous historical figures of the time, such as his bromance with Leonardo da Vinci.
Now all that's left is to remove your ring finger.
Really?
I'm sorry, but this is how it must be done. The blade is designed to ensure the commitment of whoever wields it.
Bene. Do it quickly.
I was only having fun, Ezio. Though the blade once required a sacrifice, it's been modified. You can keep your finger.
The cities themselves were impressive for the time and a huge upgrade from the first game. Lively crowds help make the streets feel real, and historically accurate architecture adds authenticity to the whole thing. There's even a menu in-game that gives you real-life facts of the places and people represented. Assassin's Creed 2 is still considered by many fans to be the best in the series. It took the ideas the first game had and crafted a fantastic open-world experience that established the formula all future games would follow. The Assassin's Creed series was becoming a major juggernaut in the video game industry, and Ubisoft wasn't about to slow down. Brotherhood represents an important shift for Assassin's Creed. For one, the series' original creative director, Patrice Désolé, left midway through development on May of 2010 after working at Ubisoft for 13 years, leaving the series behind without a recognizable figurehead. It also marks the first game to be a part of Assassin's Creed's new yearly release cycle. Coming out only a year later and being a spin-off of 2 rather than a full proper Assassin's Creed 3, Brotherhood feels more like a refinement, but still offers lots of new additions. I say spin-off, but as far as the story is concerned, it's a direct continuation of Desmond's story and Ezio's, picking up moments after the end of AC2 and mandatory for the larger franchise narrative that was being built. Ezio must rebuild the Assassin Order in Rome, and this leads to a couple of key new features, such as city districts that must be liberated. The best addition is the inclusion of the Assassin Recruits. You can get the common people to join your cause and send them on time-based missions to increase their rank and gather resources. You can also summon them at any time with the push of a button to kill any target for you, to hilarious results. It's a real shame they dropped this in later games.
Synchronizing agents.
The final big addition for Brotherhood was its multiplayer mode. Its main mode, Wanted, is an 8-player match where each person is assigned a target they must kill. While you could simply run around and try and kill your target, you earn more points for being stealthy, plus your prey has plenty of tricks they can employ to get you off their back. A multiplayer mode isn't something people really asked for from an Assassin's Creed game, but Wanted is a clever and creative idea that takes the series' themes and mechanics into a competitive mode. In fact, it still has its fans, and you're able to get into a match even today. Despite not being the massive leap forward that 2 was, Brotherhood was a well-received game. For a lot of fans, when talking about the best game in the series, Brotherhood follows closely behind 2.
I am wary of this fight, Claudia. Not because I am tired, but because our struggle seems to move in one direction only, towards chaos. Today, I have more questions than answers. This is why I've come so far. To find clarity. To find the wisdom left behind by the great Altair. So that I may better understand the purpose of our fight. And my place in it.
Brotherhood may have gotten away with only being an improvement of 2, but people were starting to want the next big game in the series. That still needed more time, so in the year in between, we got Assassin's Creed Revelations. Revelations marks the conclusion to Ezio's story. He's an old man now, and his journey in Constantinople brings some finality to the character that fans grew up with over the past several games. They even bring back Altair from AC1 as a playable character for a handful of story missions, making this a story sequel of sorts to the original game.
Are you hurt?
Broken foot.
What is your name, brother? Altair, son of Umar.
As a finale to these characters, Revelation does a fine job. On the modern day end, Revelations plan to offer just that, the missing pieces of the puzzle needed before it could finally get to the big conclusion it was building up. Some of these answers offered nice resolutions for fans, but for the more casual player it felt like it was spinning its wheels a bit, biding its time for the next game. On the gameplay end, there's not much to talk about with Revelations. Ezio gets some mobility upgrades such as a climbing hook for fast climbing, and liberated zones must now be defended with tower defense style minigames. But otherwise, it's an identical experience to Brotherhood. There's a lot of mixed feelings on Revelation. Longtime fans enjoyed seeing Ezio's story come to an end, but on the gameplay side, it's more of the same, and people were ready for something brand new.
Once upon a time, we had a ceremony on such occasions. But I don't think either of us are really the type for that. You've your tools and training, your targets and goals. And now you have your title. Welcome to the Brotherhood, Connor.
Some people were starting to feel disillusioned with the series and its more incremental iterations, but there was this sentiment that the true sequel to 2, Assassin's Creed 3, would be the big leap forward. After all, the game was in development shortly after the release of 2, and ran on Anvil Next, the successor to the previous engine the series used. This would not only come with better visuals, but brand new animations and a reworking of the controls. And by all accounts, Assassin's Creed 3 reviewed well and was praised for its huge scale, but there was also a lot of people that felt very disappointed in the game. The game is the final part of Desmond Miles' storyline and his journey to save the world, tying into the real-world 2012 Mayan calendar myth. To unlock the technology needed to save the world, he must travel into Animus one final time to relive the memories of his ancestor.
My name is Radohangado.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna try that.
What would you call me then?
Connor. Yes, that will be your name.
Connor is a half-Native American during the time of the American Revolution. The story tries to balance Connor's desire to save his tribe, throwing himself in with the Founding Fathers and participating in the Revolution, and his personal quest to defeat the Templars run by his father. It's an ambitious amount of narrative, and AC3 does stumble to balance it all. The game has an extended prologue that takes hours before you become Connor in the full Assassin's getup, and a lot of time is spent on the American Revolution rather than Connor's personal quest.
Connor, allow me to introduce you to our newly appointed Commander-in-Chief, George Washington.
Ah, so you're the one who saved Sam and John at Lexington.
It was the Patriots who did that. I merely lent support.
The undeveloped colonial American setting is a great deviation from previous games. The frontier offers some beautiful wilderness, and the game's new parkour makes hopping from tree to tree fun and slick looking. The downside is the loss of large towers and massive buildings to climb. The traversal of Assassin's Creed was built for tightly packed urban environments, and running along the wide streets of colonial Boston isn't as fun. One of the more praised and surprising aspects of AC3 was the inclusion of naval warfare. For such a side feature, it's well thought out and a wholly new idea brought to the series.
Ready up to fire! Fire!
The game was unfortunately quite buggy at launch, due to development being rushed so it could come out in 2012 in order for its modern plot to feel relevant. It's certainly not the worst case of a bad launch in the series, more on that later, but it has since been patched if you play it now. Still, it did affect a lot of people. Assassin's Creed 3 is a game that had grand ambitions. Some of it successful and some of it fell short. But it also just wasn't that brand new kick in the teeth for the series that some fans were hoping for. Released on the same day as AC3 was a complementary game called Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation for the PlayStation Vita. The hardware of the Vita let Liberation be a fully fledged portable Assassin's Creed game, with an explorable New Orleans and Louisiana bayou, but its scope is still more limited than its console counterpart. The most significant part of Liberation is its player character, Aveline de Grand Prix, the first female protagonist in the series. She's able to swap between different outfits and disguises, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. The modern game elements are light but pretty fun in this one. The game pitches Liberation as a video game within the Assassin's Creed universe, and occasionally your game will get hacked to reveal the truth to you. 2 years after its release, Liberation also got an HD rework that brought the game to the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC.
What the hell's happened here? Were you attacked?
Other way round. It were Blackbeard who struck first. Opened fire on a British man-o'-war, the pillock.
What in God's name for?
Still searching for medicines, but he's gone barmy if you ask me.
A lot of fans put their hopes on Assassin's Creed 3 as the revitalization of the series, and its disappointments left some people ready to write off the franchise. So, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was a big surprise. A game that shed the series' traditions in order to create, of all things, a pirate game. Now, the game does build off the mechanics and art assets created for 3, but by focusing on the ship sections and expanding that into the core focus, Black Flag has a drastically different feel from any other game in the series.
Fire! Almost ready, sir! All in the stunsail! Seems to be alone, sir! Fire! Ready! Right there, sir! Fire! Ready to fire, sir!
In fact, the game was originally meant to be a spin-off in the vein of Brotherhood and Revelations, but changed so much they decided it was worthy of being a proper sequel and given the number 4. And it's a really fun pirate game too. As Edward Kenway, you captain the Jackdaw and her crew. You get to customize your ship and roam the waters in search of ships to pillage. Ship combat is good arcadey fun, and the more you pillage, the more you can outfit your gear and ship. It's a rewarding setup, and you can spend hours never setting foot on land, hunting down whales and legendary ships, and of course, boarding. Roaming the ocean brings a new level of exploration and discovery that hasn't been present in the series. For example, there are small islands that can be discovered, some of which hold buried treasure you can search for. The more traditional Assassin's Creed elements are present once you visit one of the major ports, but the game doesn't restrict in how you want to spend your time. Once you have the Jackdaw, if you just want to sail with your crew and plunder for treasure, you can do that, while singing some sea shanties, of course.
Hey boys! Oh, just hear the old man say, goodbye, fare ye well, goodbye, fare ye well. Oh no!
Black Flag feels like a proper pirate game that simply uses the Assassin's Creed framework. This is a major reason why Black Flag felt like a breath of fresh air for so many people. Even the story gives less emphasis to the overarching narrative of the Assassins and the Templars.
Morning, all. I can wait. Who's this? Adewale, the Jackdaw's quartermaster. Jackdaw.
You named your brig after a poxy bird.
Playing as Connor's grandfather, Edward Kenway, a lot of the game is about the final days of the legendary pirates. Yes, the assassin stuff does come into play, but the story doesn't take itself as seriously as 3 did. The modern stuff is wonderfully meta as well. It continues off the idea Liberation started, where Black Flag is a video game within a video game. You work for Abstergo Entertainment, a game company that turns Animus memories into video games. Side note, Black Flag would be the final game to feature competitive multiplayer.
The player has left the game session. A new player has joined the game session.
Black Flag was just what the series needed to stay afloat, and being a launch game for the PS4 and Xbox One gave it legs. But the game was still built with last generation in mind, so the next game, Assassin's Creed Unity, would mark the series' true jump to the next generation. However, Ubisoft didn't want to leave people still on last generation systems behind, so they planned for one final game for the PS3 and Xbox 360 to come out simultaneously with Unity, Assassin's Creed Rogue.
I was saving those fellas for you.
Very thoughtful. Maybe you were not completely useless, Sheikh.
Perhaps the most often overlooked game in the series, Rogue is a fine game that's largely built on what came before in Black Flag. What makes it stand apart is the narrative, where you play as Shay Cormac, an assassin turned Templar. The people you spend the first half of the game calling brothers becomes the targets you hunt.
We trained you well, traitor. Kisigawase. It didn't have to be this way. It did. You are an enemy. Achilles will see you dead. What he's doing is wrong.
It takes the white and black narrative of the good assassins versus the evil Templars and makes it completely gray, something the series has hinted at but never fully delved into. It also marks the final game to be built using the tools created for Assassin's Creed 3, and the end of what is referred to as the Kenway Saga. People didn't give much thought to Rogue before its release, but it ended up being a familiar but still solid game that gave people who wanted more Black Flag exactly that. It also helps that it was well made and polished, something that couldn't be said about its counterpart. At this point, the Assassin's Creed series had a pretty rocky reputation, but Black Flag earned back a lot of goodwill. Assassin's Creed Unity, while not a bad game, ended up tanking the series' reputation for a number of reasons. The main reason being the game's numerous glitches and game-breaking bugs. For whatever reason, 2014 was a particularly bad year when it came to AAA games launching broken and unfinished, and Unity's problems were perhaps the most meme-worthy, with montages and images of broken NPCs and missing skin. Being released in such an unpolished state gave credence to those that felt the yearly cycle harmed the series. Ubisoft issued a public apology, giving out free DLC and even a full game for those that bought the season pass as compensation. The game has since been fixed, and if you play it nowadays, it runs fine, but it's too little too late for the game's reputation. Which is a shame because there is stuff to like about Unity. The game's rendition of Paris is beautiful, and the city's crowds and peoples are given a boost in life that the series hadn't gotten for a while. The climbing was also changed. You can now choose to climb up or climb down, which gives movement a much better flow and keeps you going. And yet, Assassin's Creed Unity's problems weren't just with the bugs. Ubisoft made the controversial decision to include microtransactions, something that left a sour taste in some people's mouths. And for all its improvements, the game returns to the structure of the older games.
Welcome back. Now that you've experienced life as an assassin, are you willing to take up the fight and join us? Deacon, load the file.
The map was filled with repetitive missions, towers to climb, and hundreds of collectibles. Unity was simply the point where a lot of people were done with the style of open world game and felt burnt out, like it was a step back from Black Flag, a game that pushed for exploration and discovery. Because of the way Ubisoft develops these games to hit a yearly release cycle, the team in charge of Black Flag was not involved in Unity. In fact, the idea for Unity actually started all the way back in 2010, shortly after development of Brotherhood, with full production not ramping up till 2012. This might explain why Unity doesn't take a lot of the changes Black Flag had. Unity is by no means a terrible game, and a lot of people really do enjoy it, but it's undeniable the negative stain it's left on the public reception of the Assassin's Creed series. But despite this low reception, another proper Assassin's Creed game was still released a year later.
The iron ship's from here. The Templar running things is Rupert Ferris and our Target 1. Target 2 is Sir David Brewster, who's got his hands on a bauble that could ruin us in this wretched war. Think you both can handle it?
What a question.
All right. My mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, the unstoppable Fry twins. See them nightly at Covent Garden.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate takes place during the Industrial Revolution of London. For the first time, you play as two protagonists, twins Jacob and Evie Fry, and you can swap between them. While they play mostly the same, Jacob focuses more on brawling and combat, while Evie is about stealth. Syndicate is built on the engine and mechanics of Unity, but is a much more polished experience. Its big new mechanic is a rope launcher, cutting out the need to scale large buildings by hand and making traversal faster than ever.
Confound this city! No one looks where they're going!
Yes, I've noticed that.
Compared to Unity, Syndicate was proclaimed as a return to form for the series, for both fans and critics. But fatigue for the series overall had hit hard. Sales numbers were down the first week due to the sour taste left by Unity. And while it did bounce back due to positive word of mouth, it was a sign that things needed to change. 2016 would mark the first time in 7 years that Ubisoft would not publish an Assassin's Creed game, and the development team would be stepping back and re-examining the Assassin's Creed franchise. Not that we got a complete break from the series, as a feature film starring Michael Fassbender released that December. After the release of Black Flag in 2013, the core creative team behind that game at Ubisoft Montreal started to work on their next game in the series, set in ancient Egypt. They were given a lot of freedom from Ubisoft and took this opportunity to reinvent the experience of an Assassin's Creed game. The result is Assassin's Creed Origins. Taking place well before any of the previous games, it's set to tell the story of the creation of the Assassin Brotherhood. Influenced by games like Elder Scrolls and The Witcher 3, Origins will focus on discovery and exploration. There will no longer be a mini-map, and viewpoints from towers are still present, but no longer fill in your map. A brand new AI system will give human and animal NPCs their own routines, with the goal of creating the most realistic Assassin's Creed world to date. The combat has also been reworked, focusing on positioning, animation speed, and player ability to dodge and parry. It's definitely the most ambitious reworking of the series, and we'll find out if it pays off on October 27th, 2017. And I hope it does. Assassin's Creed is a series built by so many people with lots of passion put into every game. But personally, I feel the series hasn't been given time to properly grow and develop, thanks to its yearly cycle and real changes needed to move forward. Hey everybody, thank you for watching this episode of History Of on Assassin's Creed. It's a really big franchise, so there was a lot to cover. As always, make sure to let me know what you think of this episode. You can leave a comment below, you can hit me up on Twitter. Always appreciate feedback. And come back in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing one on the 2D Metroid games. Thanks for watching.